Morning, Jerry. Hi, Marcy. We meet again.
Yep, back from
We ended our day yesterday together, and now we begin our day together.
That's right.
Well, you were both on my mind as well.
Well, good, I think. We started working on the land division work with the plan last night.
Well, I haven't jumped ahead to that yet.
Oh, there's time.
Yeah.
I just sent, it'll post on the website shortly, but the resolution that we'll talk about first thing should be in
Okay.
Morning.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
I need to do a little sound check. Can anybody hear another voice when I just am quiet in my house?
No, the voice in your
Silence.
head is just in your head.
Okay, good. I don't want to put my earphones on unless I have to. So, okay, we got everybody here?
Yes, we do. I tell them.
All right. So good morning, everyone, and good day to anyone who's watching this via recording later. I'd like to welcome you to the July 22nd City Council work session. We have two topics today. The first is an update and a request from our city manager regarding Classic Street, so we'll take care of that first. The second is our ongoing work on the housing ordinances, and we'll pick that up as the second item. We're planned for 2 hours this morning. We'll see how the time goes with that, and then we'll make sure we talk about follow-up from today's meeting, because I'm pretty sure we're not quote-unquote done with housing ordinances at the close of this session. So we'll see where we are with things. So Layla, do you want to take us through what's going on with Classic Street and do your normal good job of giving the background on what we're doing and how it relates to the last couple of months in particular, please?
Yes, I'd be glad to. I just wanted to note, I did send council a copy of the resolution I'll be asking for your approval of today.
So we'll need to review that, Leila. I didn't see it till...
I figured I'd put it up on my screen and we talk through it. It just got posted on the city's website. So we're operating quickly and efficiently to get this project going. But as many of you know, for the last year, we have been working with, well, I guess it's been about 8 months with an engineer to do a design of the Classic Street connection project, which is a water line, a sewer, a storm system, and a shoring up of and replacement effectively of Classic Street itself, including the inclusion of a walking path. And so that was designed. City Council back in February adopted findings that enabled the city to take an alternate contracting method. And so that's an alternate to a low bid. And the purpose of doing that approach was we wanted to ensure that we were able to evaluate the proposals based not only on cost, but also on qualifications, given the complexity of some of the elements of this project, including the retaining wall elements, firms that were familiar with working in sandy conditions adjacent to slopes, things of that nature, and then also firms that understood that time was of the essence and so had a proven track record in delivering projects both on time and on budget. This project, as you may recall, is significantly funded through a grant that the city received from the state of Oregon. The purpose of that grant funding was to help incentivize the construction of new housing. Since that time, the city has received and approved a 60-unit income restricted housing development that is currently in the process of going through the building permit process. It's received its land use approval. The required improvements that were necessary to start that project are being put into place now. So if you've driven down to Kearney City Road and you've seen some excavation and grading and things of that nature occurring, that is to establish the roadway that is a precondition to the building permits being able to be issued. So that work is well underway. Our project literally interconnects with that water line that will serve that area. So the city issued a request for proposals to select a contractor. We did this back in April. We received 4 bids. As I mentioned at the last meeting, we ended up rejecting those bids and starting the solicitation process over for a couple of reasons. The key reason being the cost. The second reason being we found some inconsistencies between the engineer's project manual and the city's request for proposals. And so we felt it was in the best interest of the city to reissue the RFP with some real clarity. Any of those inconsistencies worked out. And then also we wanted the opportunity to create what we call a bid alternate for the retaining portion of the wall. One of the things we learned when we did the first RFP was that the costs were quite a bit bigger than what our engineer estimates showed us. And so this was an effort for us to be able to both clearly communicate to the folks that would be proposing on this project our intentions and to create a fair and balanced process for everyone involved. We also provided an opportunity to extend the project timeline. So in the time frame between RFP 1 and RFP 2, RFP 2 was issued in June and also turned around in June, is that we received certainty from the state that the funds that were allocated to this project would carry over into this biennium. And so that gave us more certainty around our ability to ensure that the project could get completed. So with all that said, we issued a second RFP and we received 6 bids, which was great. We did see some cost savings in the ability of our contractor to be able to, or all the proposers to be able to extend out the timeline somewhat. And I'll mention that the purpose of extending the timeline and why that's potentially cost effective is that we have a certain amount of time that we can do paving. Paving is the last piece of the project. And so we're now here well into July. There's several months worth of work. And the likelihood of us being able to get the paving, all the underground work, all the shoring up work that needs to be done in time to pave this year is very, very difficult. And so what we have proposed to do is to extend that out into the spring. Our RFP asked for 3 sets of bids, if you will. 2 were for the same scope of work, and that's what I'm asking for authorization today to do, is to begin work on, we call the base bid, which includes kind of everything but the retaining wall and all the associated improvements with the retaining wall, including the paving and things of that nature. We asked for 2 costs, one for completing the work by November and one for completing the work by May. And then we set the RFP up to give our team, so the evaluation team, which was made up of myself, our operations manager, and our public works director, to determine which one of those two scopes we should use when we evaluated the project. And we did find, by and large, that the longer window, the April-May timeframe, resulted in lower costs. And so we evaluated proposals using that schedule, as well as the retaining wall portion of the project, which was also separated out from the base bid. We evaluated the retaining wall completely separately from the base bid numbers. Yeah. So that said, we went through a very rigorous and thorough review process, again, looking at qualifications, experience, timeline, retaining wall approach, and then the base bid. Again, as I mentioned, we had six firms that submitted, which is two more than round one. So to me, that's a good indication of, I think, the quality of the RFP too. And the folks that scored the highest were Advanced Excavation, Inc. And so today, what I'm asking for City Council to do is to approve a resolution that would authorize me to execute a contract with Advanced Excavation. However, the way that it's set up is that so we would select Advanced for the full project, but what we're asking for today is that council only approve effectively what we're calling the base bid. So that first phase of the project, to get going on that right away. And then once we have them under contract, we can start to work with them to value engineer the retaining wall scope of work so that we can see if we can get closer to the budget that the city has. I will note all bids came in above what the city's budgeted resources are for this project. So value engineering is something that's essential for us to do in order to be successful. But taking this approach allows us to do that. We can start to get to work right away on the things that really do need to be completed immediately. And the urgency is that we originally issued this in April with the hopes that we would be under construction late May. We're now in late July. And so the benefit of this is that we can start to work right away on the water line, which is essential for the housing work that's occurring right now, would allow us to get a huge chunk of the work done this calendar year. And then depending on the outcome of our negotiations and our value engineering exercise, we may be able to get even to the retaining wall work this year. But again, that's all contingent on our ability to hit our budget mark. But we can at least get folks going on that first schedule of work. And then once we get to a place where we feel comfortable, I will come back to City Council and request approval from the City Council to authorize a change order to this contract to complete the rest of the work. And so that's how the resolution is structured. So the resolution itself just identifies that the city adopted findings allowing us to do alternative contracting. The city issued an RFP. The city selected Advanced Excavation because they had the highest scoring proposal, and that we've divided up the implementation into 3 sections. So authorizing the city manager to execute that agreement with the general contract for the entire project, but only authorizing us to pay for the performance of the contract's amounts that are determined in the total number of units of work in the schedule of unit prices that were submitted as part of the project. And that the reason why we don't say this is an amount not to exceed is they give us a bid, but they may not need to use all of the stuff that they've bid for, right? So there's some flexibility built in there. And then Section 3 states that you would direct the city manager to obtain city council approval prior to authorizing a change order that would essentially complete out the rest of the work. And then that way, too, we can show you, here are the value engineering steps that we've taken. Here's how the costs have been affected, and inform all of you on how we intend to complete the project. So I think with that, I'll stop, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. And the resolution is now posted online. And just for the record, I've been working for months and months and months with the city attorney on the contract, and they have signed off on the contract.
Questions or comments, councilors?
Just a clarification question. When you guys were looking at the bids, were you considering the possibility of having two different contractors on the different pieces, or was it always going to be
one? Yeah, always one. There's a great deal more efficiency in doing that. That's a good question.
All right. But their number on the wall was also presumably competitive.
Very much so. Yeah.
All right.
Could I ask how many pages is the resolution that you've summarized for us?
If you take out our signature block, it's 1 page.
I'd like you to bring it up, because I'm fine in theory with, at least for me, we may have more questions, but I'm uncomfortable approving it until I've actually had time to read it, which I'd like to do. And we can do that real time. Well, that's coming up. Are there other questions? Let me just pull. Linda, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I have had time to read it. I pulled it up while Layla was talking, and it looks good to me. The question I would have is, as we go to the retaining wall, do you expect re-engineering? What do you expect as the next step in terms of the retaining wall to bring it into our budget?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't know the answer right now. We have to get under contract with Advanced in order to start to really pull them into the fold. We believe that the retaining wall is necessary. And so there may be some need to redesign what the street cross section looks like. So some items I can imagine that might get taken out are, the walking path is a pretty essential component of this.
Right.
So I guess what I can say is that we're going into this with the mindset of, we want everything. We want the walking path. We want the retaining wall. We need the retaining wall, and we want the traffic calming. And so what that exactly looks like right now, I'm not sure. But I do believe, I have confidence in our team that we will find, pun intended, a path. It will likely look different in certain sections than what we had thought we could do when we showed this previously.
And the walking path, the barrier is critical to the walking path. So without it, we will not have a walking path.
So the if you mean the barrier by the retaining wall,
I'm sorry, I mean the retaining wall.
Yeah, the retaining wall is definitely one of the key drivers. Just preliminarily talking with our engineers and between staff, we feel like there could be an option where we can have it. We can have it all. It just may not look exactly like what we had hoped it could look like. And I promise, the more I know, I will give you updates.
Okay.
My plan is that once we have a good plan, or we at least feel like we know where it's headed, I will bring that to City Council before I ask you to do a change order to implement that.
Okay.
And Layla, what's the status of the protests from the other bidder?
So we rejected that protest.
Mhm.
And so that's where we're at now. They do have 60 days, I think, to file something in the circuit court, but there's no legal or anything stopping us from continuing to move forward with our project.
So I'm not expecting any of this to happen, but since we're going ahead with somebody else, the goal of the protesting party is not to get the job at this point, or presumably not to, right?
In my limited, admittedly, understanding of these things, that is typically the intent of protesting, is that the party that's protesting is an aggrieved party. And so if the award doesn't go to the selected contractor, it would ultimately go to that party. So that tends to be the motivation to take something to the next step.
Okay. But obviously it's James and others at Miller Nash are telling us to go ahead with these guys. And so whatever mechanism there is for the protester to get satisfaction, it's not, you're not going to trade places 2 months in.
So I did, of course, consult with the attorney on what our next steps should be. And I think just by virtue of being here today, that moving forward is completely acceptable. There could be a number of ways that the next step could be impactful, but we are going to go ahead and proceed. And that's because time is of the essence, particularly when it comes to installing that water line. And I believe that they can, as soon as we get their contract signed and the bid bond received, and I'll issue a notice to proceed, we will probably hit the ground running in the next couple of days.
Okay.
Brad, any questions?
No, I did have a chance to read the resolution, and it seems pretty clear to me. Thanks.
Okay. Tom?
I guess my question, and I'm not seeing any numbers in this, and I'm curious to know, once we do the second phase with the retaining wall, and we're knowing that this is not, it's going to produce a number that exceeds what we had budgeted for. I'm interested in what you project to be the overall fiscal impact, because we do project that it'll be done within this budget year from what I'm hearing. So how do we pay for it?
So what we're doing is can I stop sharing? Is that okay? Okay.
Yep.
It's just hard for me to keep track of where everything is.
Mm-hmm.
So we had budgeted $3 million and some change for, and I need to reserve some of that change for engineering costs. And so that's the sort of target value design that we're heading towards, is how can we do this for $3 million? The base bid for this first phase is approximately $1.44 million. So that leaves us about 1.6 to work with. So we're going to work very, very hard to get it to that 3 million. If we can't, in order to get all the things, that will be a conversation I will bring back to all of you to discuss. But the intent of the team is to get it to that $3 million mark. Does that answer your question, Tom?
It does. It leaves the pregnant pause of, what if we can't get to there? Do we have reserves that would be adequate to get us to the finish line?
There's some possibility of looking at other potential funding sources. I would say they're not significant. And then the other option is to take things out. And so my goal is to get as far as I can to get all the things and get us into a, did I say something wrong there? I heard a no.
Yeah, somebody needs to mute.
If you're not muted and you're logged in, thank you. Great.
It was me, and it's the cat again.
Oh,
Sorry.
Oh,
gosh.
that cat.
Oh, goodness.
You're out of order.
Keep going. Yeah, I need my gavel for the cat. Okay.
Yeah. So we're going to work really hard, Tom, to get to where we could get it all for what we have. If there's a potential to get it all and it's going to cost a reasonable amount more, that's something I want to share with all of you. And I'll have to think through how we do that. But I think the ultimate goal is to really do our very best to get us to what we've budgeted for. But there are some options. I just think that creativity goes a long way. And once we have a contractor on board who can sit down and talk to us with our engineer, I think we will start to see that creativity blossom a little bit. So I'm hopeful. I'm Pollyanna when it comes to this.
And Advanced is a contract that we're familiar with and have a big comfort level of working with these people. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a great thing. They're very familiar with how we work in our conditions, and there's they're very highly qualified.
So I do have just one question or thing I want to clarify. Before that, is there any other comment from council? Okay, so, not having a timeline in front of me to visualize it, by doing this and taking this approach, this also presumes that by starting the work now on the base bid, we're not going to let so much time elapse that we're committed to things that are problematic with reducing the amount for the retaining wall. So in other words, the work that will get done before we have value engineered, et cetera, won't be so far along that we're already committed to something that then we have to say, wait, that's not going to make the cut, and we'll have to dial back something. So I said that a little roughly, but do you understand you want to clarify what I said and answer me if you can, please?
Yeah, I think I do. So I think what you're saying is that there's elements of the retaining wall that would need to get, are we putting at risk anything related to the retaining wall by starting the work now, essentially?
Are we putting at risk anything that would require changes and we're already have done the work and then we have to back up?
No. So what we did was, so there's elements of what we're calling the retaining wall scope that are actually not the retaining wall, but are related to the retaining wall. So what we tried to do is pull apart all those things. So everything that's in the base bid that we do should not have an impact on, and that was very intentional. So the list of things, it's like the retaining wall is one line item in the retaining wall scope. There's a bunch of other stuff that goes into that as well, that will just be, until we solve for that issue, won't be addressed. But everything in the base bid scope can proceed regardless. It can go ahead and go. I hope that answers what you were asking.
Yeah, and then another thing, and so by approving the base bid of 1.4 million, we know there is an additional spend that's absolutely critical to finishing anything that's usable, right? So it's not like the additional portion is somehow optional. Anything that we're not committing to now in the base bid, parts of it have to be done to make the project, to deliver on the project deliverables, including a road that works and wastewater that is improved.
Stormwater, yes.
Stormwater, thank you. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, that's correct. Yeah. And there's a number of different elements of the base bid that will be Nacarni City Road water line connection. Like that's probably going to be first out of the gate. The water line that goes up Classic Street, the improvements between, I believe it's between Lyneda and Dorcas. So some of all those things will be able to get done. And then the things that won't be included in the base bid are the extensive stormwater system that will be between
Dorcas?
Dorcas and Nacarni. That will probably we'll need to look at that. We're looking at some value engineering options at the engineering level we haven't talked to the contractor in detail about any of that. Yeah, so those things will get worked out once we kind of understand. Really, it's what we got to figure out is the retaining wall. How do we reduce costs on the retaining wall? And so we're having that I think will be the focus of the conversation. And then everything else just gets kind of fit into that proposed change.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I'm going to ask if I can have a motion, but I want to make sure there's no other question or comment that we should take before that.
How do we do this in a work session?
It is not. So I actually noticed this meeting as a special meeting.
Oh, look at
We
that.
are able to take an official action today.
Good job.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, thank you for confirming that, Jerry,
Yeah,
because that's
good point,
important.
by
That's
the way.
important. Yeah, I mean, for those watching now or later, we don't, in a work session, we don't make decisions. So we're doing that today. And so we're in a different kind of format than we normally are. And I just actually opened that as a work session, which is a mistake on my part. So hopefully you made it so far on the recording that you understand that was a mistake. And we're in a different kind of session today that allows us to make decisions and take a vote outside of the normal council meeting. So actually, thank you very much for the clarification on that, Jerry. Okay, anything else?
No, thank you.
Was that adequate correction then to clarify that we're in a special meeting as opposed to in a work session?
Yes, and it was noticed as,
Yeah,
as
okay.
such. So I think that was just, and the mayor knew that. I think it was probably just forced to have it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you. Yeah, thanks. Okay, and I'm glad Tom asked that because we don't want anything to come back later that was improper. So if we're sure, so it was noticed properly, I acknowledge the error I made in opening it. We are confirming that it is, and the language is special session.
Correct.
Yeah, and we have met the noticing requirements that this is a special session,
That is correct.
correct?
We used to have those once a week, not too long ago.
I wasn't part of that, so I'm hopefully won't get too much
I
credit.
remember those days.
Okay, so I would like to ask a counselor to help move this along with a motion, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution by reading the title only. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Manzanita, Oregon, authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Advanced Excavation, Inc. for the construction of the Classic Street Connection project.
I second.
Thank you. May I have a vote, please? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Do you want to step away and phone Advanced Excavation right now before we continue on with the housing ordinances?
Yeah, you can pause.
Right. Okay.
Thank
you. And looking forward to a good project and good work with another
Me too.
excellent partner. We're
Yeah.
coming off on a very nice project with our partners on the City Hall. So my expectation it'll be up to those standards, and we'll have a very good working relationship that delivers good results for the city and everyone. So
As well.
thank you in advance, and we'll be talking about this a good bit more, I'm sure, as we get things underway.
Thank you.
Okay, so now I'm going to ask us to shift gears, go back to the fact that we are also continuing today in our special sessions, conversation and work relating to our housing ordinances. So for those of you who, Tom?
Do we need to close the special session and reopen as a work session?
No, you can just continue with this agenda item and you won't just be making any decisions. It's quite okay. It's sort of like if we were at a regular session meeting and you had a discussion topic.
Okay.
Good question, though.
Okay.
No, I'm really asking. I don't want to move on. Just
Yeah, I'm not satisfied.
okay. All right. I don't always do a good job of facial reading over Zoom, so I just like to make sure I'm good. Okay. Thank you, Tom. Okay, so in the last session, we spent 2.5 hours working through many, but not all, of the items that have been proposed to us by the Planning Commission to consider for changes in our housing ordinances. So we were focused on the things that are optional, although we did get into occasionally as needed some discussion about things that are required of us by state law. Where we left the meeting was we had gone through we'd taken our first pass at all but the last item, which had to do with Manzanita specific, I get the language right on it, Manzanita specific design proposals. And we shelved that, postponed that for this meeting. But I'm not proposing that we do that first, actually. We also, at the very end of the meeting, started to look at the maps of the new 3 zones that we will have, MH 1, 2, and 3. And we were beginning discussion and starting to already get some very good questions about the implications of the zones, what they meant, what they meant, how it changed from our prior zoning, and also what was allowed in each zone, what was required in each zone. So my proposal for today's agenda is a couple of things. So one, I did send out to council the summary notes that I took around where we landed as just individual counselors trying to get a sense of where we were going to have items that required more discussion and where we were starting to get agreement, although nothing like a vote yet. We're still learning and we're still interested in further citizen input. So what in general, without going through all of that, we've still got a number of items that I think need work on our part and need more input from citizens. So I would propose today that we begin with the maps. We just pick up where we left, and I'm looking for feedback here, so please be ready. I'll ask for your opinions here in a minute. But I would like to start with the maps and just kind of start a refresh on the zones, what they are, how they've changed, and then what's allowed in each zone and what's required, I should say what's required now in each zone, what's allowed in each zone, and make sure we're clear on that. And then we can move to the Manzanita specific design proposals, which I think we're going to need a refresh on what they mean. And then we can collectively just stop and say, so where is council now? We know what some of our next steps are in terms of public communication and engagement. We can go through that again, just what the commitments are for the next 2 or 3 events that we have planned, and then just see where we're sitting as a council regarding our work on this. Does that sound like a reasonable way to spend our time today?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, about an hour and a half left for all that. Great. I want to say again, repetitious for those of you who've been here, we intend to keep a pace. That means people are still learning and absorbing, so we're not going to rush through any content. If we end up spending a lot of time on maps and we still don't get to some of the other things, we will just keep going because it's very important for us to understand the content and understand the implications. And I think we would acknowledge that we're all on council, all still in the midst of doing that work. So it's different. A lot of times we're working on the small details at this point, but I think the work we have now is deeper than that and more substantial. So do I have consensus on my assessment of it? Mm-hmm. Nods or cat cries or anything that would indicate. Okay. All right. And so I'm going to ask for everybody's patience again too, because we all have different speeds with this. So, all right. So you want to, Marcy or Layla, can you bring up the maps, the one that we finished with, and let's do kind of a refresher. I'm also thinking about people who are on the call today who were not part of the last session, just so we can all get on the same page with the zoning changes, and then we'll proceed from there.
Yes, I'll share in a second. Layla, share. Allow sharing, please.
Okay, it should be good.
Okay, there we go.
Thanks, Marcy.
So this, I believe, is the page that we were on before, the zoning map here.
Make it as big as you can, Marcy.
That's as big as I can make it. I hope that works. I can make some of this bigger, but I guess let's see here. I have to just navigate around and I can't capture the entire map, but.
Okay, I already see we have a question or a comment from Tom. What's that, please? You're muted.
So I have this page also that was a part of one of the packets. It's a page 3, which tells us what we're projecting would be the various uses that would be involved in each of those zones.
Yes.
Can you make that readily available as we go through this discussion as well, please?
Yeah.
I'm digging for my hard copy.
I have to stop sharing for a second and go find that file too.
Tom, which document was that in? I've got so many documents on this thing now. I'm a little.
I think it's the one that has the title 25_0602 PM cover memo and attachments PDF. Is that the way you see it, Tom?
This is an herbs work document that was submitted and we used as reference during the last workshop session, correct?
Correct.
During the June work session, yeah.
Yeah, and so the pages you're referring to, because I couldn't see them, were the
Page number 3.
I don't have pagination on mine, so this is just the one that says 5,000 square foot lot and 7,000 square foot lot, and then it lists the current regulations, the model code, and the Manzanita proposal.
The top banner says draft code amendments, new zones, uses, and then the key is permitted outright, and C is conditional use.
All right, well, we'll need to bring it up because I don't have that at hand, and it would have been great to have figured that out ahead of time.
I think it's one of the documents that I sent to you, Catherine.
I've got a lot of documents, Tom. I'm just looking for some help to get to the right one. Thank you very much. Okay.
So is this the document that you're talking about, Tom, the one that's up on the screen right now?
No, it's
a list, isn't it?
It looks more like this. It's a chart.
I believe it's the land use table that's in the code. Second.
There, is that it?
Next one.
Mm-hmm. This is the uses that are
permitted. That's the one right there. That's the one.
Okay, let me just see if it goes on to the next page. Yes. This is on this document.
Marcy, we're not going to be able to find it. Can you separate that out and email it to us? Or can somebody separate that out and email it to us? So we have it in front of us?
I can't do it while I'm doing this.
Email it to me, Marcy, and I'll do it.
That'd be great, Layla. Thank you.
Marcy, if you'll scroll down to the...
Just a minute. I'm just going to send, I'll scroll down to where, and I'll let you look at this while I email this to Layla. What are you asking, Tom?
Well, I'm just, as we have a discussion about this map, then this chart, then this chart tells us what's permitted outright and what's conditional uses. And this to me maps out for me what the differences in the various zones will be. Because on the map, that's all, what I see defined as the MH1 is pretty much kind of the existing neighborhoods within the city.
Could we stop? I want to give everybody the context, and we're already jumping into it. So let me just no disrespect at all.
Yeah, no,
So I think the table is a good idea to have. I think it'll help us check against the actual documents that we have that are in the code, which can get a little different than the discussion sometimes. So it'll give us a good anchor for that. And if we have that in front of us to use, which some of us are able to do that online and some of us are better have printing it and using it during the discussion, let's just take a minute to get that. And then we can use it and we can talk it through and just check everything off and make sure we have a methodical discussion about each zone, which is what we're all trying to do this morning. So, Tom, I think it's a good suggestion. We're just going to have to catch up with getting the mechanics of it so we can all benefit from it. Okay?
Great.
Great. On a busy day, many of us could appreciate just a moment of being quiet. And we'll just take a couple breaths while we.
Layla, so I just emailed you the document. The document we're talking about is the Planning Commission's public hearing version. It's dated 0602. It has the sections bookmarked. So I think what's being asked is for the sections to be separated out.
Take me a minute once it gets here, but I'll be working on it.
I've already grabbed a screenshot of page 3. If you want help, if Marcy will display screen 4, I can get it out quick.
So we're talking about this page, correct?
Continued on page 4, or is it just this one page?
No, you're correct, Brad. It continues on this page also, and then it ends. That's the land use.
If you'll hold it right there, let me do a quick screen capture.
The only nice thing about the document, Brad, is you can make it larger. Nice.
Can I move to the first page of this 2-page table? Because I think that's the one that, is probably more apropos. It includes the housing types.
Yeah, where the meat of it is. Yeah.
Counselors, that's in your inbox now, and it's a graphic, so you can make it as big as you want.
Okay, I'll need a minute.
Got it. It's great size, Brad. Thank you.
Just let me know when you want me to explain how this relates to the map.
Just give me another minute. The reason I always ask for patience is because I need it myself. And then I'm generally the slower one, which isn't going to change. So just hang on another minute. Shoot. Okay.
I think where we were, tell me if I'm wrong, but is trying to understand what the current zones are and what's allowed in them currently, and what the proposed zones are and what's allowed in them as proposed in terms of the housing types. Is that correct?
I think
Yes. And I think we're trying to make a major distinction between things that are suggested as being a good idea and things that are required of us.
Yes.
Still seeing, we're not on the maps yet. I guess you're trying to figure out how to get out of the, or is that just my issue on my computer?
no, it's not. It's
Okay. I'm always ready for it to be my issue.
I have tried to put the map and the table side by side here on the screen. Can people see that?
No.
no.
What we can see is the far right of the MH1, MH2, MH3. If we could focus on the, well, it's better for people who aren't on council who are watching, trying to follow, to be able to see, there we go.
Nice.
Except that I got to change my view now, so I'm not going to be able to watch everybody's facial expressions, and you'll really regret that, I know, but I want to see the full chart. So just, I can't see anybody now, but I want to be able to see all three columns of this. So if you want to say something, just say it verbally, or just say you need to speak, because I won't be able to see you to acknowledge it like I normally would, okay?
Okay, so I'll start in, but stop me at any point if I'm not answering what you want to know, or I've gone too fast. So today we have R2 is this, most of this area that's currently MH1, the orange area. That's R2 today. This MH2 over here, and also including just to the south of Lanita and just to the north of Lanita, but obviously not Lanita itself, that remains the commercial zone C1. But the MH2 was formerly R3, R4, and RMD. And now it's been made into a single zone that's called MH2. And lastly, the third proposed zone is what was SRR. So what we have to do, according to state rules, is allow, to go back to what is currently allowed in these zones, is a 5,000 square foot lot minimum. They're all very similar to each other in terms of the lot size and the allowed use, which is why I proposed consolidating many of them. But they start with a minimum lot size of 5,000 square feet, and the uses allowed are a single dwelling or a duplex or two family dwelling. The two family dwelling, each unit has to have a minimum of 2,500 square feet. That's what's allowed today in all of these zones. The difference with SRR compared with all of those is that it also allows some lodging and commercial uses today, and that will continue. All right, so what is required by the middle to large city House Bill 2001 and the Model Code and the ORS is that we in areas where we have a 5,000 square foot limit on lot size, we must allow single dwellings to.
Marcy, is there any way you can use your cursor to touch on where you are on the list on the right as we're going?
Sure.
Thank you.
I'm talking about these two housing types here, this one and these three, basically. They have to be allowed in an area that's got 5,000 square foot as a minimum lot. So let me see if I can explain this better. So basically, this right here is what is required.
Not the triplex. Okay.
Thanks. Right. Up to, so 1, 2, 2 on a 5,000 square foot lot. When we get into 7,000 square foot lots, which you don't have a zone that has 7,000 square foot lot as the minimum, but larger lot zones is where the state requires a city to go to all of the things I previously listed, plus triplex, quadplex, cottage cluster. I failed to mention townhouses must be allowed everywhere. So in MH1 or in what was previously R2, so all the orange zone and all of the, really the entire city, 5,000 square foot lots is your current minimum. So you would have had to allow one family, accessory dwelling, 2 family, and townhouses. That just off the bat. Larger lots.
By off the bat, you mean required?
Yes.
Okay. So the change from that, and I'm going to ask for some repetition because this is one where we've had kind of different answers occasionally in different conversations. So if you don't mind, because this one's very important, can you go back and just go through one more time what you just said? So what's allowed in MH1 and MH2 with presuming a 5,000 square foot lot, a lot of that size, what we used to allow and what we will allow now, what's permitted?
Just what you used to allow was a single dwelling or a duplex. And an ADU, although it wasn't actually on the books yet, but it's required by previous law.
Well, we didn't allow ADUs. There was discussion about it, but they were never.
Right.
I don't want to get in a tangent, but we have not actually had ADUs in the city limits of Manzanita, correct?
That's my understanding, and we're wrapping it into this project because it's another compliance issue. You need to comply with previous rules.
Right. I understand that, but I want to make sure we understand what the actual reality has been in town. So the ADU is required. It's new to us. It's a change for us. That's one of the changes we're folding into our housing.
Yes.
Okay. So on 5,000 square foot lots, because the conversation doesn't really match the thing we're looking at because there's nothing on here about lot size per se, but let me just see if I understand this right then. So in the MH1, where the lots are 5,000 square foot or less, we are required to have a one-family dwelling. We're required to have an accessory dwelling unit. Are we not required to have a two-family dwelling?
You're required.
Okay, two-family dwelling. And
townhouses.
And townhouses, which jumps down the list. So what's not allowed in the MH...
What's not required?
What's not required in MH... Let's just stick with MH1 for a minute. What's not required in MH1 are triplexes, quadplexes, the cottage clusters, the multi-unit dwellings, and then things that seem less relevant.
From here down is not housing types. but things that were already in your zoning code and their allowances, and we did not change those. So we're really talking about everything that's up in these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 rows of the table.
So in the proposal that we've received from Planning Commission, they would like to have added, they're recommending that we have added additional types of housing that we are not required to have in the MH1.
Right.
Okay, so I want to stop. This is really important. I've had a lot of questions about it. I'd like to just see if perhaps I'm the only one who needed that level of clarity, but are there any other questions regarding the MH1 on this and the frequent questions I have asked so far? Anybody?
Yes.
Go ahead, Tom.
Okay, so the P in the code in the key says the P means permitted outright. And are you telling us that it's permitted outright by the model code and we have to adopt that? Or are you saying that the recommendation is that it's going to be permitted outright in these proposed new zones? Because what I'm reading, I believe that triplex and quads and townhouses are all required by the model code, with some exceptions. So what's your P mean? Does it mean that's what the proposal is?
This is the proposal, and this would go into your zoning code as it's shown here. This is what the Planning Commission asked for, and so what we prepared.
Okay,
for
so
adoption.
Can you tell me then? Are any of these not on? Are any of these not on the have to do list?
Yes, we just went through that. Let's go through it again and stick with the MH1 because there are things that are permitted
Right.
on here that are not required of us. And that's the distinction we're trying to make.
This is not required. This is not required. This is not required. And this is not required.
Under the model code.
Under ORS as well.
Okay.
So this would be an example,
Sorry.
which was what we've been working on. This would be an example of something that's been proposed by the Planning Commission. And we have the option to accept that or not accept that, housing type by housing type. We're the only ones we're required. The ones that we do not have a choice on are the ones that we just went through at the beginning, the ones that are required by the state. I'm willing to spend more time on this one because I just think this is important, and for people in the community, it's not clear yet, and I think we
Okay, I'm sorry. I have to make a correction. I'm just making sure that I have the OAR correct, the Oregon Administrative Rules and the Model Code.
Okay.
Sorry, this one type does have to be permitted in a 5,000 square foot lot. Triplex. So just, if I could just review one more time.
Yes, please.
These 4 and this, we're talking about what is required in a 5,000 square foot lot zone, which is what your your R2 is, and this type. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 housing types are required in your 5,000 square foot zone, as required by the Oregon Administrative Rules.
Okay, let's keep going. And let's try and stick with the MH1 if we can. We're going to go through MH2 and then we're going to go through MH3. Jerry? I didn't see whose hand was next. So Jerry?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. I think last time, Marcy, you said that in MH1, townhouses would be limited to 2 attached. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
And just to be clear, that is a customization that we've made to try to mitigate the impact of the model code. It's something that's allowed by the Oregon administrative rules, which is the kind of the second step you get to apply. It offers a few more choices. We took that choice to limit townhouses to just 2. We did that because the lots, in reality, R2 truly has more 5,000 square foot lots. In fact, many of them are not actually 5,000 square feet. They're more like 4,000 or between 4,000 and 4,999. They are not all 5,000 square feet. So they tend to be smaller lots. It's more topographically challenged to the north. And so the smaller townhouse version make the most sense. And we did that on purpose.
Brad? Jerry, you okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, Brad?
My question would be, you listed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that would be permitted, but we also have cottage cluster and multi-unit dwelling in NH1. Would that only be allowed on a 7,000 square foot lot or larger?
No, the proposal as crafted in collaboration with the Planning Commission was with the building envelope that we discussed last time, the orange shape. With that in place and that ratcheted down and the floor area ratio ratcheted down, I think that they were thinking these other housing types should be allowed if somebody can make them fit into the shape. In the interest of allowing all housing types anywhere and not segregating housing types by zone. That was very important, and the discussion was not segregating housing types by zone, because segregating housing types tends to segregate household types.
I have to say that sounds more like a statement than an actual implementable thing. That doesn't, if we say that it's very unlikely and require a great deal of creativity, I'm not sure we really, this is my opinion at this point, get much from that other than a statement that it's available, but we're saying it's available, but it's also extremely unlikely that somebody could come up with something that would fit within the size of lots. Is that fair? Or I don't want to be unfair about how I'm looking at this, though. So
I think from my knowledge of middle housing, and I've been cataloging middle housing all over the state for 10 years or more, there are a lot of cottage clusters that would actually be really nice on a small lot. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be the easiest thing, but also courtyard apartments, which are considered cottage clusters but attached, which is a housing type that we will have to add when 2138 passes. So we're kind of getting ahead of that. I'm sorry, probably going into too much detail on that. I have seen these housing types work really well on small lots. If you know Northwest Portland, for example, there's lots of small, affordable units mixed all in with each other on 5,000 square foot lots. The range of housing types that you can get on a 5,000 square foot lot is surprising and can be very, very interesting and good for mixing household types in a neighborhood. I'll just say one more thing, which is that we discussed last time aggregating lots or maximum lot size. And I told you that the Planning Commission did not want to have a maximum lot size. So in an R5, in a 5,000 square foot zone, somebody could, under the current proposal in total, they could take 2 5,000 square foot lots and aggregate them and make a 10,000 square foot lot. And then they could do these other housing types, maybe in a way that is more easy to visualize.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah, we're just, I think, working on understanding at this point. I probably got ahead of the game on offering an opinion about some of it, so I'll pull that back in while we keep working on what we have before us. So is it okay with everybody if we move to the MH2 now and just do the very same thing that we just did and just see what else is what else might be allowed now currently that's different than MH1? And what is proposed and what is required and what is proposed. So if we could do that for MH2, that'd be great. And Tom, I want to thank you again for giving us the chart to look at. Okay. Okay.
So it's going to be simple to understand because it's exactly the same as MH1. You have a 5,000 square foot lot is the minimum lot size for what was previously R3, R4, and RMD. It's pretty much 5,000 square foot lot across the city today. And so what we did here was we looked at what the lot sizes actually are. And in this area, they are actually closer to 7,000 and 10,000 square feet on average. So we are not required by state law to allow the other higher order housing types here, but it made sense to do so from the interest of trying to make more opportunities for middle housing. So it was a choice.
So go ahead, Tom.
So when I look at the area that's encompassed by MH2, I see a lot of land that hasn't really been developed so far. And one of the prefatory commands of the statute itself is to do a housing needs analysis and create a dashboard for a plan. Is this the area where we would expect most of this kind of development to take place?
I do think that most of it probably will happen here. Yes.
And by here, you mean MH2?
In
Yes.
MH.
And specifically in this area of MH2 over here.
I'm sorry, I didn't get where you're go slower.
In this area of, sorry, I can't use my cursor in that way, I guess. In the far eastern edge. Over here. Does that make sense?
Well, why don't you explain why?
Because that's where it, as Tom is pointing out, that's where there's a lot of undeveloped land right now. So it is more likely that you're going to see more housing built here in the future. More of the housing need could potentially be supplied here.
Go ahead, Tom.
If we had an objective to try to preserve our current residential neighborhoods intact, would it make sense then to not permit some of these multi-unit dwellings in the current neighborhoods in MH1 and instead put them into MH2 so that we're actually encouraging that development to take place?
I think there's two separate questions in there. One is to preserve the existing nature of the residential development in MH1. That's question one, right? And then does allowing all these housing types in the MH2 encourage or incentivize housing development there? Is that another question?
That's the primary question, actually.
Okay. If that's the primary question, I would say that allowing all the housing types there does definitely incentivize housing development there. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much.
But Tom, not to speak for you, were you also considering restricting the larger housing types in MH1, which would definitely only allow or encourage people to do it in MH2?
That would be the gravamen of my question, because I'm trying, we're all trying to not, say, we've come up with our own idea about what should and shouldn't be done. But personally, I would like to see less change in the MH1 area because it's pretty filled in. And I think that the people that are in those areas would like to see some stability.
So I would accept that as a point of view that we'll hear from citizens.
It's a point of view.
Yes, and I'm sure it'll be a strong point of view. It runs contrary to the proposal, not contrary exactly, but it's different than the proposal from Planning Commission. And that Planning Commission wanted to make sure that we were allowing possibilities for that kind of housing, the additional housing types, which would be limited. It's not going to be a wholesale change in MH1 due to, as you said, the already settled nature of most of the land there and most of the properties. So I think that's something, we're not voting today. I think that's something to really be considered and to look for more community feedback on. Well, I'm going to hold it at that for right now and ask Jerry what he would like to say.
Well, I just want to, I guess, piggyback on what Tom is saying, because the new housing that we would be definitely committing to in MH1 is not insignificant. I mean, we would add obviously ADUs and triplexes and some townhouses. So it's not as if Tom's suggesting that MH1 gets protected in any substantial sense. But as long as we're thinking along these lines, I do want to point out that MH1 undoubtedly currently bears the greatest burden in town of having STRs that run the whole show here. So MH1 is working hard for all of us, seems to me. And I do think that it's okay for us to talk openly about trying to minimize the impact of changes there if we can, particularly in light of how much that zone is contributing to the overall finances of the community with the heavy STR presence. But that very conversation that I just started is one that I'd rather have the full comp plan process have than the five of us. So that's just I regret that we're not I regret that we're not in a better posture in terms of the full comp plan process on that kind of conversation. But I think it's on people's minds, and I think it's something we should be prepared to hear and address when we start talking more with the public.
Tom, is your hand up again? Okay, take it down so I can keep track.
Thanks.
Linda, you haven't had much to say on this yet. Is there anything you want to add? Uh-oh.
You're on mute, Linda.
And I can't see her on my view. Thanks.
Thanks, Catherine, but not at this point.
Okay. Brad?
I'm good.
Okay. I'm not just good food for thought. I'm not sure I'm not sure I go with the logic of the language about introduced by Jerry on the STR. So that's another element. I'm not sure about that, and my decision making on this has more to do with the established nature of the neighborhoods. But I just go back to the whole reason the legislation was created in the first place is that things weren't happening enough in already established areas, and so yeah, it's a decision that we have some decision rights to make. And I thank Councilor Spegman for the reminder that the additional types of housing that are allowed and permitted now in MH1 do represent a change in and of themselves. So yes. I'd like to do one thing that's probably going to be repetitious, but I'm going to do it anyway. Can we go back and just say, so Marcy, so everything that we talked about in terms of required housing types and optional housing types in MH1, it's the exact same thing in MH2? No changes?
Yes.
Okay, so there are no, just by virtue of the lots being bigger and it being called a different zone, there's no additional requirement. Well, there are no additional, we know what the optional things are, and it's the same thing as when we were talking about MH1. Okay, I just wanted to be sure I was clear on that. So even on the bigger lot sizes, the quadplexes are optional, the cottage clusters are optional, and the multi-unit dwellings are optional.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. Could we take a step further, which might just be a short one, but could we talk about MH3 now and how that differs or is the same from MH1 and 2 in terms of what's permitted now and what will be required of us?
Yes. Think of it as exactly the same as MH1 and MH2, except that there are additional uses that really show up on the next page that we're not looking at, having to do with lodging and commercial uses. Those remain.
And those are the same as what was allowed in the SRR.
Correct.
Okay.
We would have made probably MH3, we would have blended it right into MH2, except for these other pre-existing uses that we need to retain.
Okay, got it. Tom?
The difference I see in the chart, though, is that in MH2, you're permitting residential home and residential facility, care facility kind of uses in MH2, but not in MH3.
Yeah, that's a good point.
MH1.
I didn't change those. Those are permitted in that way today.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you for pointing that out. Those are things that have been allowed in the prior, what we used to know as R3, R4, or the RMD. As far as I know, we don't have that in town and haven't had any interest in that so far, but that remains the same as it has been. Okay. Just looking a little further down on the list. So home occupation and cottage industries, are those all allowed in today's setup? Is there any change there?
No change there.
In manufactured dwelling?
No change there.
Okay. Dwelling parks, park and publicly owned recreation area, not included in MH3. Is there a reason for that?
There's no change there.
Okay. But public or private park or recreation facilities are allowed, which I assume is how it is now and how it has been in the past. Okay.
Yeah, it's essentially it's park and publicly owned recreation areas and facilities are allowed in each of those zones, but there's a footnote that goes with it in MH3 that has to do with it not including the recreational vehicle parking area.
Okay. So there's no, I had this question come up from somebody. So there's no change in this in terms of manufactured dwellings and what the city's ordinances are,
Yes.
how those are
Sorry,
allowed?
no change. There is no change.
Okay.
Isn't the city park already in MH2?
I'm sorry, what?
Isn't the city park currently in MH2? The sliver that's in the more established part of town.
Where is it? Is it in?
It's yeah, you're heading there over a little bit further south than from there. You're going down 4th Street till it curves, and then it gets. Is it in MH3? Layla, can you help us on that?
I think it's on
It's this little
MH1.
triangle right here. It's in MH3.
It's in MH1. It's off Pacific Lane.
Yes.
Yeah, Pacific Lane.
So
Yeah,
it's that big parcel that's right. Your cursor's almost there. If you go a little down, now
there you go. Oh, right.
over to the other.
Oh,
Into-
this. Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay,
This
that
is-
thing.
Park.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
big. Yeah. It's encompassed in this
The
cell here.
Park and publicly owned recreation area.
Yeah. Which thank goodness is allowed. I'd hate to be going through all this and find out that our park is not allowed.
Yeah.
Okay.
How do you differentiate public or private park or recreational facilities from the previous category?
I'm not in charge of that. I mean, I just brought those uses as they currently exist and are permitted and or conditional. I brought them into this table, the same as they are today. No change.
So Layla, you could take that question or we could defer it and get it answered. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll get an answer because I don't think it's in the definitions. I think
Okay.
the only difference is that it's a private park or recreational area that, I mean, my guess is that would probably be something like the golf course.
Well, you're building a park or recreational facility in Manzanita Pines as we speak, aren't we?
There is going to be a park in Manzanita Pines, but I think it's specific to the residents that live there.
Right. So that's
I think that probably was put in there for the golf course because the golf course is in MH3.
okay.
That's my guess, my educated guess.
Okay. So does everyone, is there anybody who would like to have repetition or additional clarifying questions asked for right now about what is required now in MH 1, 2, and 3 and how that's different from what's been in what we've had in the past?
I have, I'm all this information, I'm getting a little muddled.
Go ahead, Linda.
Yeah, so the permitted outright, now that is permitted outright currently or permitted outright by virtue of the Planning Commission's proposal or?
It's the latter, Linda. It's what
the
we're
latter.
looking at is what's proposed by the Planning Commission.
Okay, so permitted outright really means proposed by the Planning Commission.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that helps a lot. So all of this is up for discussion. With
Well,
the
there are some
exception.
things that are permitted outright today.
So let me finish, Marcia.
Okay. Sorry.
So as I understand, the one family dwelling, accessory dwelling unit, two family dwelling, triplex dwelling, and townhouses are required. There's no option in that. Everything else is optional, depending on how we move forward.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I was getting confused, and that's very clear to me. So thanks, Marcy.
No, that's good. Thank you. And then the one additional note I'd add is the point that Jerry reminded us of, which is in the, well, actually, I have a question now. When we look at townhouses in the MH1, there can be no more than 2 attached.
Right.
But we didn't talk about it in MH2 and MH3. I'm presuming that that limitation is not there.
There are only 4 attached in MH2 and MH3.
Thank you. So that's the max. So 2 pairs. Well,
Or they could be 4 literally attached, all 4.
okay, so 2 pairs or 4 that are all attached, so 3 common walls across 4 units.
Correct.
Okay,
That is all required.
That's where we have a choice. We had a choice between the number. There can be no fewer than 2.
Okay.
Obviously, you have to have a pair of townhouses in order for it to be defined as a townhouse. But you can take advantage of the OAR to differentiate between different areas in terms of the number.
Okay.
so in this case, the 4 is set as a limit, so 2 pairs or 4 attached is set as a limit by in the MH2 and MH3. That could have been 2, but because the lot sizes are larger, I presume they opened it up thinking there would be more opportunities for 2 pairs or 4 to work.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Would it be a terrible amount of work, Layla, to update this chart so that it would include in each of those zones? It currently is what's being recommended by the Planning Commission. Could we also have within each of them what's required by the OAR?
Well, actually, the OAR is pretty simple, Tom. It's just there are only 5.
Yeah, it's a learning tool for me.
Okay.
Well,
And then-
Tom, I was thinking along the same lines. If we could just highlight Blackplex, cottage cluster, and multi-unit, showing that those are options.
And then I'd also like to know what's permitted currently within each of those, whether they're currently permitted.
I think that would help too. That's where I was getting confused between what the Planning Commission is proposing that differs from what is currently permitted. I would really support that.
Well, we have to come up with something. We'll need it for public meetings. Well, I mean, it's more than just this. We'll need it to be able to demonstrate to people who
Right.
you're not going to read the 200 pages or listen to all this. So I think the combination actually of this map and this chart just modified to show the difference between what's required versus what is proposed would be useful. So let's just mark
Versus what's already there. I mean, what is currently there. I think Tom's point was a good one.
Yeah, I intended to say that, probably just
I'm
didn't get it
sorry.
right. That's okay. So let's say it again. So what's currently allowed,
Okay.
and then what's required of us, which is in addition to currently allowed, and then what's proposed on top of that, which we have an option to accept or not.
Perfect.
Yeah, but I think this simplifies a lot of conversation and helps the people who need to see the map, because the first thing people want to know is where's my place and how does that fit, and then they can easily see what the changes might be. I mean, it's easy because we've been in hours of conversation to even understand what some of these definitions are, and it'll be new to people. So, but that's just part of the ongoing kind of public comment and public learning about this.
Can I run an idea by you?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think that we could take this map on the left and we could have 3 different versions of it. There'd be the same map, but there would be call out labels that showed the housing types under today permitted in this zone. And the next one would show under the requirement what is permitted, must be permitted, and under the proposal what is proposed. So there'd be a list of housing types associated with these colors on 3 separate maps. Would that be a way of doing this? I think.
Well, that could do it because it'd be additive. It'd be what it is now, because we're not taking anything away. What it is now, plus what's map 2 plus what's absolutely required, map 3 plus what
Yeah.
the additional stuff we have proposed. So yeah, I think that could do it.
Okay.
Kind of working our way through this, but yeah.
Thanks, Marcy. I think that's a good idea.
Okay, so it's 11:30. This has been in my mind, a good discussion about the maps and the new zoning and the requirements plus want to haves, et cetera. So that's been time well spent. We've also gotten into some questions and concerns from different angles that have been raised about whether or how much additional housing types that are not required might be allowed in MH1 versus MH2 or MH3. Is there anything else any counselor wants to raise as as an area, not so much an area of question, but just is there anything else any counselor would want to say about where their thinking is about the decisions we have to make on the optional types that have been offered to us? Maybe sort of in the spirit of what we did last time, I could just take a poll right now to see where each of our thinking is on the additional types of housing, the ones that are not required, just by zone, and see if you're starting to get to. Tom will be first. If we can get to just a sense of where each counselor is on this, and it's perfectly fine if the answer is as it was in our last session. I don't know yet. I'm still processing, and I've still got some other variables that I want to think about. So let me just try a poll, and I'm assuming that's why you're raising your hand, Tom, but there might be something else. So go ahead.
Well, can we have just a little bit of discussion? I understand exactly why you've put the various boundaries around each of the zones. But we do have some areas, like we had this discussion about MH2 being the likely place where we anticipate the development to take place. But that's also got some developed areas in it. And so how much is there wiggle room to redraw the map a little bit so that the developed areas maybe get a different designation?
Can you go back and restate why we would do that, or why you think that would be? I think it's one thing to be talking about the options proposed. It seems like a bigger thing to request map changes, and I just want to make sure I understand what you're getting at. So could you try again?
What I'm getting at is, again, my personal predilection that established neighborhoods not have to experience an upheaval in their current living situations.
So you'd be suggesting or asking the question, can we just take every street that's already mostly full of streets and move it into MH1, and anything that's basically undeveloped land of a certain size beyond a lot be categorized as MH2?
I'm interested in that discussion.
Okay, well, let's see who else would like to add on to that discussion.
Well, I understand the rationale. I think it's probably not going to be an easy or practical undertaking at this point. But I understand what you're going for, Tom, and I have some sympathy for that. And I guess I would hope that if we do treat the different zones differently to the extent we're permitted to under the mandate, we may be incentivizing the market to do what you're wanting to do without having to point specifically on our map where they should do it. It seems to me that all over the state, as middle housing takes off more, there are just going to be places, cities, towns, counties, places where there's going to be a better market for middle housing for a lot of different reasons, unrelated to the desires of city councils to create more living opportunities for folks. I think those forces will take over here and probably bring about the result you're asking for. I don't know if we can. I don't know enough about zoning to know how easy that would be, but it strikes me that it would be opening up a can of worms if we tried to redraw the zoning maps the way you're saying. But I get your sentiment, and I don't disagree with it.
Could you say specifically what the sentiment is and what you agree with?
Well, I think that you're right, Catherine, that the reason why this legislation was passed is because cities and towns on their own were not developing enough middle housing opportunities in existing neighborhoods. But we do have a town that is really different from one corner to the next. And part of the difference is the age of the houses and the density of the neighborhoods and the we've got other parts of town that are kind of wide open and there is more space. And it just makes sense that to the extent permissible, without trying to segregate folks, to the extent permissible, I think we should tailor these changes so that the development happens in the places where it's more likely to happen anyway. And so I think Tom is saying, look, if we have to allow some forms of housing, which could result in some neighborhood disruption in MH1, let's do it. We have to do it. Let's do it. Same with the other zones, but we might be able to do more of it in some places than others. And I don't think that's I don't think that's out of line. It's not. It's just taking the reality of this is not a town where you can go to every corner and say, well, this place looks the same here as it does up there. It doesn't. It feels different. It looks different. It's developed differently. It's come online over different decades. And so I think it would be smart for us to approach this in a more tailored manner as opposed to a across the board manner. And the opportunity is there. And, the Planning Commission did some of that for us. The Planning Commission, as I understand it, did not have to limit townhouses to 2 attached in MH1. They did. They did it for a reason. I accept their reasoning and I appreciate it. And now I'm trying to extend that basic reasoning, which is to treat different zones differently where permissible.
I'm going to go to Tom in a minute, but because this has been sort of a back and forth between the same couple people, I'd like to poll and just see if Brad or Linda have anything that's on their mind about this, and then we'll go to you, Tom.
Well, I personally think the zoning map does a pretty good job of identifying like areas and then kind of congregating what could happen in those like areas. I think what I hear from Tom and Jerry is they'd like to make some exceptions in some areas, and I would be concerned about that. So, I mean, I'm open, but it just seems fraught with I was going to say prejudice, and that's not the word I want, but it just seems like it would be problematic. Is kind of where I'm coming from.
And you're talking about MH2 at this point, not MH1?
What I'm saying is that I think the map as drawn, dividing MH1, MH2, and MH3, is a pretty accurate representation of a housing style and lot size. Mm-hmm. And that pulling any of those out to make exceptions is problematic to me. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, it does. Brad, how about you?
I'm okay with the zoning map. Very much the same feelings as Linda. But I did have a question, and if we need to place this somewhere else or follow up on it later, I'm fine with that. But there was proposed maximum square footage of a first unit on a lot of 3,000.
Yeah.
What about a multi-unit? Could we not have a multi-unit, even though it's multi-units? Would a 6,000 square foot multi-unit be allowed? That would be 1,500 square units in one building, but a total square footage of 6,000.
Yes, it would be allowed because the 3,000 square feet is a maximum, but you don't have to have a 3,000 square foot first dwelling.
That seems conflicting to me. So if I wanted to build a single home, I could only have a building of 3,000 square feet. But if I said, oh, this is going to be a multi-unit dwelling, I could have a 6,000 square foot building, thus defeating the purpose of the 3,000 foot, not to have these giant buildings on lots.
You could have 1,500 square foot dwellings.
In one building.
Right.
So that doesn't seem logical to me that you would restrict a single family house to 3,000 square foot, but allow a multi-unit dwelling to be 6,000 foot or more.
Well, it would only be what is allowed within that building envelope or according to the total floor area ratio that's allowed on that lot. And I mean, the goal is to actually incentivize more smaller units, but not disallow a single dwelling of 3,000 square feet.
That goes back, so that'll go back to our,
to me.
I'm sorry, Brad. Sorry.
I said it just doesn't make sense to me that you're going to allow multi-units to have a bigger building than a single family home. If you're going to restrict size, it should be broader.
Well, it seems to me that's just preferring getting more housing in, which is the goal of this thing in its entirety. I'm not saying I agree or disagree, but that's what I can see.
I agree it's to get more housing in, but I also have a feeling that it is somebody doesn't want to look out at their neighbor on the lot and see this gigantic building, regardless if it is a single or a multi-unit. Seems conflicting to me, but just
if you have a building envelope, say that allows 6,000 square feet to fit within it, you could do that with one 3,000 square foot home plus another 3,000 square foot home, so a duplex, or you could do it with 4 1,500 square foot dwellings, but it would all have to fit in that same envelope. It would be shaped the same up to the maximum that's allowed.
But that seems like a workaround to get beyond the 3,000 square foot restriction.
We're trying to encourage additional dwelling units above and beyond the 3,000 square foot dwelling in the form of an accessory dwelling unit or another unit.
Understood.
And we will obviously be coming back to that additional proposal from the Planning Commission around the maximum square footage. So not the end of that discussion, because we'll come back and look at that again, Brad. I know you know that, but I'm just saying that out loud. Okay. All right. Okay.
Catherine?
Uh-huh. Oh, sorry, Tom. Yeah, back to you.
Okay. So this is not 100% on topic, except that I think that it's important for us to remember about goals. And what we're trying to do is create additional housing for people that are going to work here locally. And
additional housing. I mean, a subset of that is people who work here locally, but it's a bigger goal than people who work here locally.
Well, but we're not Tillamook. We don't have a creamery. We don't have a lumber company. We're not Garibaldi and operating a port.
No, we have schools, we have healthcare centers, we have people who work from home, we have people who, I mean, I just think that's too, I'm sorry, I should not have jumped in, but that seems like a narrower definition, but go ahead with it. And I apologize for interrupting you.
Okay, because my view of it is that our industry is tourism. And we're selling ourselves as the quaint little village on the coast. And so, what I think that we do when we start, the same thing as what Brad's just talking about is you start having larger buildings and you lose that quaint little village on the coast that we've guarded so jealously for so many years. So, maybe that's wrong of us to do it. I don't know, but
we haven't done it. This is the discussion.
Well, but yeah, I don't know. What I'm saying is that's our product. So I hope. I mean, if it's going to change, things change. They always do. If we're going to start being a different style of town, okay, But I think that we're trying to do this with an idea that we have a plan. And that's just what I wanted to say. Thank you for letting me say it.
Yeah. I mean, what's not coming into the conversation yet today, although I know it's on people's minds from earlier discussions, are all the examples that came up 3, 4, 5 years ago. I mean, this is like a 5+ year discussion now, concern that citizens have raised, many citizens and business owners. We do have businesses here and we rely on them, have raised about having places for people to live who want to work in this community, and have an income level doesn't allow them access to places to live. And that's just gotten more complicated and harder through the years of COVID. This was on the table before COVID as a real strong concern in the area. And I just want to put that out there as part of the conversation, that we still have people who would like to live in the area. We still have city staff who can't afford to live in the area. The choices aren't there for them. We have a fire department, we have a school district, we have a health district, we have a lot of places where people are really challenged to find housing. And I understand the realities of the market here, and I know that the market value here makes things even more challenging. I think this work and the work we're doing now and will do is meant to see how many more chances we can create for people to live here that aren't able to live here today. And I want to keep that in there, and I'll keep bringing that in here. I mean, some citizens will do that as well, because what's natural to happen is and this is my opinion, I'm not reflecting anybody else on council. What happens when you bring in the proposal for change to get you some of the results is it's very natural that all the reaction against it comes up. But I would hate to see us at the end of this thing not have made any kind of a dent in affording people an opportunity, individuals, 2 people together, a larger group of people, whatever that definition is of family or living group, to not have created more opportunities. And the other thing that was on my mind is, so if you look at the very top of the map of MH1, you go all the way out to the beach, and you follow the little line, and then you see it dip down, and then you see it go back up, and we've got a couple spots like that. I don't know the facts on this. My feeling has always been that represented people trying to kind of make exceptions to here and there to create, even when the city limits were set. I have a hard time picturing in that MH2 zone doing something other than what's already been done, which is to just look at the land purely on the relative length of time the houses have been there, and more importantly, the lot sizes that are there. The lot size seems to me the most important variable in that. So that's my 2 cents on both of those topics. So it's important for us to think about everybody's reactions. It is, and I appreciate how that gets brought up in here. You know, our reactions, the community's reactions. It's also important for us to really not lose sight of what we're trying to accomplish here, which is additional housing for people, additional opportunities in the community. And if it was easy, we wouldn't be, this would go a whole lot faster and be pretty straightforward. And everybody go, yeah, that's great. Let's proceed. So it's not easy. So that's why we're doing this. And that's our job right now. Okay. Oh goodness. So it's a little before 12. Do we want to spend, is it okay to spend a little bit time now? We'll go past 12, but hopefully not too much, to just come back to the additional Manzanita specific design requirements. There were 5 of them that have been proposed, and we haven't talked about those yet. Would council be, we may not need that whole time, but would council be okay till 12:30?
Mm-hmm.
Layla, Marcy? Is that okay? Okay. So let's take the maps down and we can come back to looking at each other in all our glory on the screens here. Great. Okay. So Manzanita specific design, I don't see us, I don't know how you guys visualize it. I'm not sure we're going to go through or should go through all the detail behind these specific things, but I wonder if we could get from Layla or from Marcy a quick, good enough description of the 5 things on there, and then we can hit them one at a time just to see if we've got a inclination for it, against it, need more information, and just kind of proceed with it like we did last time. So the 5 items are facade articulation, the garage setback, windows required at the front of the house, landscaping in areas where there's clustered parking, and an area just called summarized as pedestrian access and accessibility. So I'm going to need, because I've spent more time on other areas than I have on this, I'm going to need a reminder about facade articulation. So can someone on staff speak to that and what's being proposed?
Do you want to do that, Marcy, or you want me to do my best?
I can do it. So facade articulation is, looking for the official definition. It's a menu option of architectural treatments. You get to choose amongst them. You don't have to provide all of them. There are 5 different options. So it's basically making sure that the dwelling faces the street with some features like a porch or a bay window or a dormer or a balcony. And your requirement there is based on the lineal frontage of the building. So the more you have, the more you have to provide.
So this is focused on the front of the home only.
Correct.
Okay. And this is, no, wait. Questions, comments, feelings about this one? Inclining towards, need more information?
Just want to be clear. So these are not before us because of the middle housing legislation.
They are required according to the model code. Many of these are, but some portions of them are optional, and we'll have to talk about those when we get into each one.
But what you've just talked about is required?
It's in the model code.
So do we have a choice?
Oh,
So wait, hang on. I'm lost. If I'm lost,
too.
other people must be, or maybe it's just me. We still need to
No,
study.
it's not just you.
So we're going to talk about 5 items here, ranging from facade articulation, garage setback windows, landscaping, and pedestrian. Those are, so when you say there's a menu of 5, you're speaking about the facade articulation, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and what I heard you say was there are choices you can make, like a menu of those 5. There may be, and is there a number? Like you have to pick X of 5 and have it be present on the front of your house?
A minimum of 1
Okay,
for a building that's 25 to 50 feet wide, and over 50 feet, at least 1 for every 25 feet.
so the idea is the larger the frontage of the house, the more options you have, and the idea behind it is to break up the space so it's not just one big wall, basically.
Yes. And
Like
so
really?
if I could, I hope I'm not going to break your brains again, but this
Well,
one,
before you
this
do
one-
that, before you
yes.
possibly break our brain again, and if it's fine, if you do, we'll just pick it back up and keep going. So don't worry about that. I heard 2 things in there that I was confused about. One having to do with basically having to do with how much of the facade articulation we're required to do. And is it limited only to certain housing types, or does it apply to everything going forward? So can we tackle it that way?
Absolutely. That's
Okay,
a good
thanks.
framing it. So this one only applies to townhouses according to the model code. But we're proposing in this proposed amendment package that it be applied to all housing types.
Okay, so if we break this down like we did earlier, the facade articulation, which can vary based on the width of the front of your home, is required for townhouses, and the details of that are prescribed by the model code. We just picked that up and said, yeah, we accept that part. But the Planning Commission addition, says we think that's a great idea for all additional housing of all the types that we just went over in the zoning map.
Yes.
Okay. So questions or comments from Counselor on that? Thank you for the help.
Thanks, Catherine, for the clarification. That was a bit muddled.
Yeah.
the
So-
Planning Commission is saying it's required for every single family house that's built going forward.
Yes.
If we approve it.
Is it much of a change? Like in essence, do people end up doing most of these things anyway? Or for the beyond the requirement, I'm trying to understand just how much of a need there is to do that, or does it tend to happen just naturally by itself, just through the design process and the individual decisions that homeowners make when they build a house?
Is that something I could try to answer? Are you directing that to me?
I'm kind of to you and to Layla also, because for the city here, I'm just trying to get a sense of how much of is this kind of a preventative for something going forward?
Yes,
We
it's a
already have
preventative, I
Okay.
would say, because if you do see more housing and it's not built by people who maybe already own a house, or, it's a developer, I think you'll want to establish a minimum level of some of these design characteristics.
How did we get to be such a cute little town without them all these years?
Yeah, because the people who build your houses it was another era, another time.
There's some new houses. But not all from a long
Just as an example, if someone decided to build 2 structures on their property, this would prevent, we could have 2 structures facing each other with an area between, but on the street side, it could just be a flat wall. It would prevent the street side from just having, so you'd have to have a porch or dormer or some characteristics
Exactly.
Otherwise, you'd have two blank walls and these houses could be facing each other with those characteristics.
Very good example. So it's preventing that.
I want to see more of what the characteristics are, and I know that's in our documentation somewhere, but I would say I generally would support that requirement.
Well, I guess what I would say is that obviously the folks that put together the model code thought about some of these things and have required some of these things. And I think it makes sense for us to obviously go along with what we have to go along with and consider some additions. But the idea of telling the town basically, hey, everybody now has got to have to follow rules that we didn't even think of before, but now it's required because of this middle housing mandate. So everyone's going to have to follow them. I guess I'd have to have a better understanding of what the logic is there. And I don't know all of, we're only on the first one right now, but I walk around town. I see plenty of different housing types. I don't see any that hurt my eyes too badly. And that all happened without these requirements. So, when the government requires stuff, it ought to have a good reason. And we got a good reason to require some of this stuff because a higher level of government is telling us that we have to require it. That's a good reason. No one is telling us we have to impose these design requirements across the board on everybody. So we need to have that good reason as a body. That's all.
I'll just poll here. Linda, any thoughts on this one?
Going back to pictures, the example that Brad had, I thought was a really good example. And one of my wishes and hopes that comes out of this is that we keep the character and village atmosphere that we have now. And it seems likely that these modifications advance that there's a warmth and a interest level. But again, I would love to see some examples, I'm sorry, of what that would look like and what it would look like if it didn't. But I'm leaning toward positive on that.
Tom, weigh in on this one?
The only negative I can see is, what Jerry's talking about is government overregulation, but I'm totally on board with the idea that we do things to continue to develop property that has character. Mm-hmm. And that's an objective. It needs to fit within, what we're doing in this town. So I'm a thumbs up on it so far.
I'm open-minded, but not. I'm neutral on it right now. I think we'll ask as a follow-up item to do some work on the visuals for this. We'll dig. I'm sure I've got some examples of it in the presentations we have so far. So when we look at it, it'll be instructive because this is so I've been here 30 years. It's a challenging discussion, and I've had plenty of people walk down my street and say, wow, I wish the whole town looked like your street, little houses and da-da-da. Meanwhile, somebody's building a very modern structure somewhere that looks nothing like any of the existing architecture here. And some people think that's the greatest thing ever. We're finally starting to move to more current architectural types, but it's not quaint and it's not a cottage. So I trust we've got good representation across the board in the Planning Commission to know that it's it's not really a mandate to keep a quaint cottage atmosphere here. We have to allow for more, and the more variety we have, the better. So I'm trusting that that went into the discussions, and when I look at that in more detail, it'll make sense to me. But yeah, I mean, we're going to get all kinds of opinions about this one. And as you all know, cities make different decisions about this. Some become very prescriptive, extremely prescriptive, and others not at all. They're just like, let's let it take care of itself, and we'll end up having variety. So this would be different. It'd be different. Some people have asked for it strongly for a while now, but we've never had anything specific proposed to react to. So it'll be good to get public comment about it as well.
But just to clarify, this isn't about the style of house, it's about the elements included facing the street.
Yes.
So you could have a modern house and require them to have a porch or a dormer. You could have a log cabin and require them to have a porch or a dormer. So those styles of architecture are not going to be restricted. It's just the elements contained within them.
Yeah, if I could just add, I mean, I think that Marcy and Planning Commission were very thoughtful about many of the issues you've brought up. And I think took a light hand in terms of the regulation of design.
Yeah.
I think that the standards that are in place are not intended to be overly prescriptive, but to provide variety and variability. But I think functionally, the main intent of these is, giving, I think, a broad range of architectural uniqueness, right? Allowing for that uniqueness across the board. Marcy, you can interrupt me at any time if I'm off point here, but it allows too that we're proposing kind of a consistency in scale. Like that's one of the big things that taking a form-based approach does, is that it does have an impact on scale. It also helps put design standards in place that really focus on the human scale experience. So Brad's example is a really good example of that. Like a big blank wall is not engaging with human beings necessarily, right? It's a less friendly type of design standard. Facade transparency, which is effectively windows. Again, that just creates it's a sense of openness and those kinds of design lines. Not putting the garage right in the front. That appeals to cars. That's a car-centric type of design. But I think, designed these standards to allow for ease of access to a garage, but that the garage is not front and center. I think we refer to them as snout houses. We've said that a couple times, because if you think about it, it looks like a little pig, and then everything else is behind it. Whereas what these design guidelines really do, I think, reflect the historic built environment that exists in Manzanita today. So I just, I hear what everyone's saying, but I do think that these design guidelines were built with a lot of thought in place and to allow a range of flexibility, because some people prefer a more modern look. Some people prefer a more historic cottage look. You want the ability to have a range of those types of options, right? Isn't that what Jane Jacobs said? It's like you want a variety of time and place and materials. That variation is what contributes to a vibrant and healthy environment, but that the scale and the human access to it is really what was the driving factor in creating these design guidelines. And again, I think in particular, because the potential for multiple housing units and the likelihood of using up that development capacity in a way that we have not seen as much. We're seeing more of it now for single dwellings. It helps soften that to a great extent to allow for the additional types of housing that this is intended to provide in a way that fits within the current built environment. Just
Okay.
Karen hadn't said anything, so I should say something.
No, that was good. And that's context for the other 4 items that we haven't talked about yet. So let's move on to garage setback. So Layla just referenced that. So what are the specifics on this one?
Well, again, I think you're asking for staff to give a sense of that. I think that, again, it's trying to promote human scale environment where you have the garage is not your front facing feature. Because if you think about it, a garage doesn't have typically has no transparency. There's no very minimal articulation, and it is not as attractive necessarily to drive by. And so the way the design standards that Marcy set up, it doesn't mean you can't have a garage. You can have an accessible garage. We're just recommending it not be front and center on the street.
Okay, so does that translate like the other setback discussions and being like from 5 feet to 20 feet? Like what's the number that goes with it, or how will you describe what that actually is? I understand the concept.
Just a
As it
second.
relates-
I'm just going
Go ahead,
to.
Marcy.
Was that really the second? Or we have articulation and then we have windows. We skipped over that main entrance. And
Just hang on. So the 5 things I picked this up from the slide meeting before last. This is the way it was listed. Facade articulation, garage setback, windows or eyes on the street, landscaping and clustered parking areas, and pedestrian access and accessibility. So if there's a different way we need to go through it, I'm fine with that. This is just what I pulled from the presentation 2
That's
meetings
right.
ago.
I reordered them in the end
Okay.
in the actual proposal. But anyway, it's this is not scaled to the width of the building. It's just every garage has to be set back a minimum of 5 feet from the longest street facing wall of the dwelling.
Could you repeat that, please?
Yes. The garage must be set back a minimum of 5 feet from the longest street facing wall of the dwelling. So say you have a house that has a bay window sticking out for 4 feet of its width, but the longest street facing wall is the wall that the bay window is on. That's the wall that this garage has to be set back 5 feet from.
So the proposal to change the setback from 20 to 10 would have an impact on where garage sits as well, but it still has to be an additional 5 feet from that minimum setback.
Yes.
So garage would have to be either, if we accepted the new 10-foot setback, it would have to be 15 setback, or with the 20-foot setback, it would have to be 25 feet setback.
Right.
So in summary, the garage has to be set back 5 additional feet from the largest setback of the house.
Yes.
Assuming most houses don't meet that exist in the community today.
That's right.
Plus-
So we, in
plus-
effect, would be legislating that most of our current houses are below the standard that the city council thinks is character with the quaint towns.
Well, I'm just trying to get
If
at
we were
the,
starting a town from scratch, I think this would be great. And we're not making people move their garages back. I get that with existing houses, but we have to look at the town we have, decide, realize how it came to be. We all seem to like it a lot. It didn't need a lot of nudging from the government to tell it how to develop. So I just want us to be careful as we tell folks what's in good character and not in good character.
I think we already have a lot of variation there. For example, our house is not within the 20-foot required setback because it was built in the 30s and was grandfathered in. But when we built a new garage, it's back further than the house because that had to meet current housing code. And I think you're going to see every version of that. But I like the thought of having the garage set back a little bit to minimize its presence from the street facing side.
If you care to know, the model code has a rule for this, but it's a little more complicated than what we have, than what is proposed here. It's based on proportion of your total front facade and the setback, and this was just a simple, like, 5 feet back from the longest facing wall of the building, street facing wall. So it's a simpler version, but you have to have this or the model code version.
But the model code doesn't apply to all housing.
Yeah, that's a big difference. It's not all
The
housing.
model code applies in this case to triplexes and quadplexes.
Okay.
But not to the housing that the majority of Manzanita residents live in.
Right. It doesn't apply to single dwellings.
Okay, so this is good to tease it out because this is an example of where the Planning Commission simplified something that was intended in the model code to apply to the middle housing types. And then, so they said, well, make it simpler. They did that. And then they said, and then we should apply it to all housing types. So actually there is an element of this that is required of us that is not optional. And that applies to triplexes and quadplexes. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So that's good to note because in my mind, I had this as the entirely optional. It's not. Okay.
So we're also thinking about its ease of administration for, one set of rules applies to all housing instead of having to come in and say, well, this part of my development is this, and so this applies, and that other part is this other housing type, so that applies. This is a simpler system.
Mm-hmm.
That was part of our thinking as well.
Okay.
And if I could just offer too, I don't disagree with Jerry at all. However, we do have many, many decades now of experience in this, and we're fortunate that we don't have a lot of, I'd say, unfriendly garages in this town. But there is a lot that has been learned over the last 50, 70 years when we had an auto-dominated society that didn't consider these factors. And so in addition to the ease of administration, which I don't want to minimize, it's very difficult, it is a best practice, right? And so what we're trying to say is, yeah, we get it. We know there's existing conditions all over the place with everything that we've proposed. But if it made its way in here, that's largely because of the fact that it is a best practice and that what we want to do is our best to influence the most human-friendly and human-scale design without trampling on people's rights to build what they want. Because we have learned a lot over the last, since the 60s, really, when autos became sort of dominant design standard. And you can see that in a lot of suburban areas where garages are first and foremost. And so that's why it was included in here. One of the reasons why it was included in here.
Okay. I'm sure we'll get feedback on this one, and I'm sure there's more we can discuss. I'm going to like to move on to the next item, if we could. And that's the front-facing windows, which seems like it's kind of related to facade articulation, but there must be a reason it's called out by itself. So can we talk about that one for a minute, please?
Sure. It's just it's called out by itself because it's not a menu. It's a strict percentage of the front facade that has to be in windows. And those windows are defined as they can be windows in a door, windows in the house, and it's a percentage of the front facade.
And what is that percentage?
Yes.
We can come back to it later if you don't have the exact.
15% of the area of the street facing facade.
The front facing facade could be 30 foot by 28.5 foot equals X square feet. And then you take 15% of that would have to be glass.
Yes. It could be windows or doors. If a door has glass in it, it has to be oriented toward the street. Yes. So basically, it's pretty much windows or glass in a door that faces the street. That has to be 15% of your facade.
It wouldn't matter if that was a clear window, mullions, a frosted window, just glass.
Glass blocks and privacy windows in bathrooms do not meet this standard.
So if there was a bathroom and one of those windows was frosted, that would not count towards the 15%.
Right.
Okay. Landscaping in clustered parking areas.
So this is a standard that applies only to cottage clusters. It's but we put it into the listing of all of the design standards, and we make it applicable to any housing type that has a shared courtyard. And that goes a little bit above and beyond what you are required to do. You only have to apply this to cottage clusters. But given if we do stick with the wider variety of housing types, I think this is an insurance that wherever someone is creating an internal common area, that you have a certain standard for the buildings that face that common area. So it can be kind of watched by the inhabitants of the dwellings, and it doesn't have the private spaces facing it only, but so it's to protect the common area.
Questions or comments on this one?
And what is the requirement? Is there a certain amount of landscaping, type of landscaping, percentage of?
Yeah, hang on. That a minimum of the dwellings within the cluster have to be oriented to the common area. They must have a main entrance facing it. They have to be within 10 to 15 feet of the courtyard, and they have to be connected by a pedestrian path.
I understand that, but that doesn't say landscaping to me.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm not sure where the slide that you're referring to that was in the presentation. I'm reading directly from 4.160.
You're referring to the proposal, Brad, you're referring to the proposal document?
No, in your list, you had said number 4 was landscaping in a clustered community. And what was described doesn't have anything to do with landscaping, in my opinion.
Where is the slide where I listed from the standards and that you're reading from?
Because what you described sounds a lot like classic cottages.
Yes, it is. Classic cottages is an exemplary development that would meet all those requirements. So you, Mayor, you were saying that I had, and you were.
I don't have the slides in front of me. Let's just flag this. I'm looking at the time too. It's almost 12:30. Can we come back to this one? It's possible I picked up the language incorrectly from a slide and I don't have the slide right in front of me. So, okay. Okay. Pedestrian access and accessibility.
That's also contained within the cottage cluster common courtyard standard I was just reading.
Okay, so those are both related and they only apply to cottage clusters.
But we are applying them to any housing type that might have an internal courtyard, common area.
So that wouldn't include someone's yard in a single family, only where working on my language, only where there's more than one dwelling unit, but not every time that there's more than one dwelling unit. It depends on how they're oriented to each other.
Exactly.
Okay.
So cottage clusters and cluster apartments.
Courtyard apartments, cottage clusters and courtyard apartments. Yes.
Okay. I don't know about other counselors. My brain is full again.
I'm
Right there with you.
yeah.
So I think of this as I don't know what metaphor comes to mind. It's a bit like being in training for something, and you just take another round of it and you get to the point where you're like, okay, I got to absorb this, and then you pick it back up and you take another round of it. So we've been doing that, and I'm sure I am sure this is taking longer than some of the planning commission would have thought for council to absorb this, and maybe other members of the community too. But I don't mind that. Because I'm more concerned that we do the work that we need to and we absorb it. So here's where I think we're at. Let me try it and then see what you'd have to add. And then I want to spend a couple minutes just to reminding people about the next coming events for discussion with the community. So I think in the last two workshops, in particular, although there's been work before that, I think we've gotten to a stronger understanding of what is actually required and what is optional for us. I think there's areas where we're not done yet, but I think we've made some good steps forward with that. I think the discussion about the zoning map that we started last time and continued with this was very good and helped get us grounded in the proposal and why it was set up the way that it is, and then also the particulars without any in the particulars of what housing type is allowed, is required now, and what's an additional proposal from the Planning Commission. And that sounds like a simple thing, but it hasn't been, in my mind, that simple to get to, or maybe it's taken some iterations, I don't know, but I feel like we got to a much stronger shared understanding of that today, and that's important. I think unlike a lot of the work that we do, it's very possible on this that we're not, each as counselors, going to be able to speak to and give the pros and cons of every single detail in this code, which is different. We're normally very steeped and could speak to everything. And I'm trying to wrestle with, personally, with the idea that I'm not going to be able to do that for everything, but for the big size things and the medium size things, I understand what's going to be required, and I can speak to it, and I can listen to people and put it in context for for the understanding I've been building here. I do think the almost pause that we take now on this kind of work while we get additional feedback from the community, both in the city conversations meeting we have planned for this week, and then the town hall kind of session that we've got planned for August will be really kind of the next big step of understanding what else is on people's minds, and also understanding what their opinion is and what they want us to hear. I think there's one other piece of preparation that I'd like council's help with. I took a start at it, and I had a brief conversation with Brad about framing up the questions that have come up so far and the questions that we've had during these sessions, to make sure we've got a good, solid Q&A for very simple questions that people might ask where they want a simple answer. My challenge is I find my answers are all complicated to the simple questions. I got to get to simpler answers so that people can understand it and absorb it, which is just sort of natural. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I'm just going to do a poll right now and just see, you agree with that generally? What do you want to add to it? So we can just get a sense of where we are as a eventual decision-making body on this. And so I'd like to start with Jerry, if I could.
Yeah, I think we're making great progress, although it does strike me that every now and then we get in the middle of a conversation and we figure out that maybe something isn't required, or it's required for a different reason than we thought it was required. So it is an iterative process. I appreciate it. I think it's going well. I think if you were able, if we are able to break out some of the pieces here, I'm sure we could agree pretty quickly on many of the pieces. The problem is trying to advance it as one big package. And so I guess I'm satisfied that we're making progress. And as long as we appreciate the process and the progress we're making and let it play out, I think we're in good shape. I think the mistake would be to try to rush it to a one decision on a multifaceted proposal, because that's going to force, I think, less than a unanimous consensus behind the whole big package.
Okay, thank you, Jerry. Tom?
I think we're making progress. I'm really appreciating the approach that you've taken, Catherine, and calling out the specific areas that need to be discussed, and it's been a really good conversation. I'm also glad that you let me call out that chart today, because I thought that the conversation we had around that was really helpful to all of us. And so that was, I know that came out of left field to you as far as the person running the meeting, but I thought it was a good conversation. So thank you.
Where do they put the worst baseball player in the field? Is it left field or right field? Who knows baseball?
You kind of try to
player.
When you're a kid, it's right field, but
okay. I was always in right field, so
there are plenty of left-handed pull hitters in
personal anecdote, way not relevant for the meeting. I'm sorry, just I'm tired. So thank you, Tom. Appreciate that. I won't do that for at least the next 4 minutes. Linda, your thoughts?
Well, I agree with both what Jerry and Tom said. I am finding that I am changing my opinion based on the input of other counselors. So I think this has been a really helpful process. I think taking it slowly is critical, because just in the time we've talked, I mean, I think I've become a lot more familiar, feel much more educated, and really appreciate your leadership during this process. I think the next step in terms of getting public input, I think the timing is good because we've done a lot of homework, but we've not made any decisions. And we're at a point where input from the community, I think, will be really helpful as we move forward. So I think everything is going great as it could be. And I really appreciate the time the other counselors have spent, the input, and your leadership. So I'm very happy with where we are.
Brad?
Mayor Stock, I agree with your assessment as well as the other counselors' views. I feel like this session and the last work session helped me tremendously to get my mind around exactly what we're doing and what elements need to be proposed. I agree with the slow approach. We need to make sure we fully understand and have the public's input before we make any decisions. And I think you had also mentioned this is not our area of expertise. So I would ask for everyone's patience as we get through this and learn. Most of the Planning Commission does this on a regular basis. They're used to all of the bits and pieces and details when it comes to these sort of things. And it's, at least for me, a lot is new, and I've learned a lot and will continue to learn a lot. But I think we're in a good spot.
Based on what Brad just said, I think that kudos go to Marcy and Layla for their patience during this process. They really.
You can scream in a pillow later if you want.
You could go screaming in a closet or something. But I think you showed exemplary ability to kind of keep us on track, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, ditto that. You stole my closing line, but I don't mind a bit. So that's excellent. Yeah, and it's work. It's work, and it's worthwhile, and the end goal is important. So we'll just keep on track. I think that's it for today. Okay, I'm glad. Thank you. Thank you, Layla and staff, for all the work on our first agenda item, getting going on that Classic Street project, and the contract is no small thing. So thank you. And I appreciate and continue to expect that we will respond to things and deal with them as they come on a project of that size. So that's great. And we have a lot of balls in the air right now as a council and as city staff. So we've got the opening of the city hall coming up in a little less than 2 weeks. We've got this work ongoing, which has been significant. We've got the Classic Street project going, which has been significant. We have other land development and things in the works and various stages of proposal, which has been significant. We've got the Planning Commission. Don't worry, there's light at the end of the tunnel. We got the Planning Commission who's doing a next round of work. And so it's a lot. And I think just staying the course and staying patient with things and just continuing to move and talk about things candidly is our best course. So I do want to give a particular shout out to staff, because I have some idea of how many other balls are in the air right now, and it's a lot. So thank you to Layla, to you, and to the other members of your staff. And with that, at 12:41, I will adjourn this special session of the Manzanita City Council. Thanks to everyone. Go forth and do other good things throughout the day, okay? Thanks a lot.
Everyone.
Thanks, Catherine.